Let us chant Namo Tassa to start the session. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samha Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samha Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavatu Arahatu Samha Sambuddhassa. All right, so let us turn to our chart. We are supposed to be starting from decisive support today. Number 9. All right. Decisive support. Right. So under decisive support, we would have object, proximity, and natural. Object, proximity, and natural. Let us go down to read what decisive support is, which is on page number, yes, so this is page number 315.
315, yes.
Decisive support condition. Upanissaya Pachaya. Nissaya, we've done Nissaya Pachaya, support condition. And this is Upanissaya Pachaya, decisive support condition. Of the 3 types of this condition, 1, object decisive support, Arammana Upanissaya, is a condition where the conditioning state is an exceptionally desirable or important object which causes the conditioned states, the mental phenomena that apprehend it, to arise in strong dependence on it. To arise in strong dependence on it. This is similar to what we find in Sahajata Arammana, right? Sahajata Arammana. We will come to it when we go to the chart. Proximity decisive support, Anantara Upanissaya, is identical with the proximity condition with respect to the conditioning and the conditioned state, but differs from slightly in the forces of the conditions. Proximity is a force which causes the succeeding mental states to arise immediately after the preceding states have ceased. Proximity, decisive support, is a force which causes the succeeding states to arise because they are strongly dependent on the ceasing of the preceding states. On the ceasing of the preceding states. Right? On the ceasing of the preceding states. Now, in Arammana Upanissaya, the first one, object decisive support, is a condition where the conditioning state is exceptionally desirable or important object which causes the conditioned states the mental phenomena that apprehend it to arise in strong dependence of it. In strong dependence of it. When the object is desirable, the fact that this object is taken with that intensity of desire, that or those mental states that arise, conditioned by those dhammas that apprehend it, the conditioned states arise with a strong dependence over what conditioned it to arise. What conditioned it to arise. Because of this reason, if we go up to the chart, it is 3-1, isn't it? Okay. Here it says 9, object, Arammana Upanishad, same as 3-1, same as 3-1. So let us go to 3-1. Sahajata, Arammana Sahajata. In Arammana Sahajata, based on the object that is taken, together, based upon that object, these dhammas arise together and they have that predominance over the mind, right? The conditioned by that object, these phenomena have predominance over the mind, right? The 18 concrete matter, the 84 chittas taking away those elements which push away objects. Why? Because these are objects or these conditions arise in taking favorable objects. In taking favorable objects. Their respective 47 chetasikas, excluding hate, envy, avarice, worry, and doubt, right? Because all of those factors push away objects. They don't take objects favorably. Their essence is to push, to get away from, right? And Nibbana. Based on those phenomena, the conditioned states that arise are the 8 greed-rooted chittas, the 8 great wholesome chittas, the 4 great functional chittas with knowledge, the 8 supramundane chittas, and their respective 45 chetasikas, excluding the hate, that whole sector of hate, and also the 2 illimitables, because it is a state of being. It is a state of being. Is that understood, everyone? Right? Then we come on to, so here, just bear in mind, the object is what brought the predominance at that point. The object that was comprehended is what brings the predominance in this condition, which is taken as a same in Arammana Upanishad, which is taken as the same as Arammana Upanishad. Because of that object, right? Because the object has arisen, now what happens? The conditioned states that arises following the taking of that object arise in dependence of that object. Do you understand? Right? The conditioned states that arise are dependent upon this object and how firmly the intensity of liking the mind has towards that object. Is that understood, everyone? Right? All right. Proximity. right? Let's go back down to proximity. What was that page again?
315.
Yes. Thank you. 315. Here it is. Thank you, Devika. Proximity. Anantara Upanissaya is identical with proximity condition with respect to the conditioning and the conditioned states, but differs from it slightly in the forces of the conditions. But differs from it slightly from the forces of the conditions. Proximity is the force which causes the succeeding mental states to arise immediately after the preceding mental states have ceased. Proximity decisive support is the force which causes the succeeding states to arise because they are strongly dependent on the ceasing of the preceding states. Strongly dependent on the ceasing of the preceding states. Now, what does this mean? Right? In what kind of a situation or instance can we think about to put Anantara Upanissaya into focus? What do you think? What examples could we take out of what we have learned already? Damsika, I feel like you want to say something. Yes, Damsika.
It's very unfortunate actually when Bhikkhu Bodhi gives these things, he doesn't give examples
Yes.
and applications specific. The for I can give you the Anantarupa Nishya or the proximity, right? It's actually when we have wholesome chittas, right? And when you have wholesome chittas and followed by another wholesome chitta, because your previous wholesome chitta gives the Anantarupa Nishya to the new wholesome, right? So we know that there are 21 wholesome chittas and 38 Kaitasikas. So that means we can consider as actually, if you consider the broad brush, when you have a series of kusala chittas, the one in the previous instant has influence, strongly influence your next arising one, right? And I think if you go more details, it's actually, they say, when you see the governors in the kusala, right? And that governors, 7 governors in the kusala can influence the 7 governors in the following chitta. And something like that. That's one. The second one is when you have anuloma chitta in the dhyana, right? Anuloma chitta, when it moves to Gotravu, right? And that influence of anuloma chitta is shows in the Gotravu.
Mm.
actually explained in the book I have read.
Mm.
The similar one is Anuloma and Chitta with Vodanasa, replacing Gotra. Once you are in the in the state of Sovan or Sakata Agami.
Damsari, could you put your mic down, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means Kusala Chitta, when it comes to normal Kusala Chitta, so it can have influence of your previous Kusala Chitta, your next Kusala Chitta. And I can tell you in Pali what is said. Purima kusala kanda. Pachimanam kusalang kandanam. Upanisya pachena pacho.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mala also knows that. Yeah. And so it's the Purima kusala kanda means the kusal sit, the kusala skanda in your previous moment has got influence, positive influence on the following chitta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damsari, could you read the Pali again, please?
Purima, that's the object. Purima, kusala kanda, pachimanang, kusalanang kandanang. Upanisya pachena pachayo.
Right. Damsari,
Yeah.
I really like the example of Odana and Gotra.
Yeah.
And a little bit has to be added, Damsari, for its completion. Right? Which is this.
Yeah.
Purimanang kusala dhamma, pachimanang kusalasa dhammasa, upanisya pachayena pache. Right? The dhammas that have arisen in the past decisively support the arising of dhammas of the present.
Yeah.
Right? However, there is a shift that has to happen.
That's right. Yes.
Right? The shift has to be included. What is this shift? Now, Damsari, same example, from Anuloma to Gotrabhu. Right? Without Anuloma, Gotrabhu would not arise. At the same time, if Anuloma is present, Gotrabhu would also not arise. Does everyone understand? It is on the basis of Anuloma fading away that Gotrabhu comes to power. Another example on the same line. During the process of rebirth, right? During the process of rebirth, this being that comes to be will for a time be influenced by the energies of past up until the child matures, or as a being, it matures to a situation where the shifting of energy dependence happens from the past to the present. Do you understand? The shifting of energy dependence happens from the past to the present. This is also an example of proximity condition. But which means that the past must die for the present to fully mature. Or rather, let me filter that a little bit more, for the present object to mature. වර්තමාන මොහොතේ ආරම්මන ගන්නේ නැත්නම් වර්තමාන කර්ම හදන්න පටන් ගන්න අපි මොන වෙලාවද? At what moment do we start building present karma if we are dependent upon the past energy still? That shift happens in proximity condition. The shift itself is what proximity condition is a part of. Whilst the present is conditioned by the fact of previous arising energies, the previous arising energy is what allows, or the failing of the previous energy itself is what allows the maturation of the present as a cause. As a cause. Do you understand? Okay. Okay. Now, Lady Seado has explained it very nicely. Right? So shall we read Lady Seado's book? Yeah, because he's given us a brilliant example. Yeah. So in this book, which is 36 under Anantara Pacha, right? So I will read it. Can everyone see? Do you want me to increase it? Is that clearer? Yeah, I will read. Anantara Pacha. What is Anantara Pacha? All classes of consciousness and their mental concomitants which have just ceased in the immediately preceding instance are Anantara Pachas. Right? Now, if you would just turn to your chart, number 4, proximity, preceding 89 chittas and 52 chetasikas. And the only place where this does not happen, the only exclusion is at a position when the Arahat passes, when a Buddha, a Pacheka Buddha passes. That is why we exclude the Arahant's death consciousness, because that does not create the arising of another, right? And the conditioned state is succeeding 89 chitta or 52 chetasikas. All right, so that is what it is said here. Which are those that are related to this pacha? All class of consciousness and their mental concomitants which have just arisen in the immediately succeeding instant are related to this pacha. We've now covered that. In one existence of a being, the rebirth consciousness is related to the first life continuum. In one existence of a being, the rebirth consciousness is related to the first life continuum by way of continuity. And the first life continuum is again related to the second life continuum and so on. Right? And to the second life continuum and so on, isn't it? Can we remember that? Right? Okay. Now, with reference to the text, when the second unmoral consciousness arises to the pure, those of the pure abode, Suddhavasa, etc., which is expounded in the Dhamma Yamaka, right? Now, let us put this into context. The second immoral consciousness arises in the Suddhavasa. What kind of beings are there in the Suddhavasa? Right? Put that into context, which are expounded in the Dhammayamaka, the 9th chapter of the 6th book of Abhidhamma. We understand that as he becomes aware of his new body, the first process of thought which occurs to a being in his new life is the process of immoral thought accompanied by a desire to live the new life. Is that clear? Right? With the idea, this is mine, this I am, this is myself. Mamatve. Vartamana arumuna panchupadanaskandha krame yatate then Vartamana arumuna vashin gannawa. E alut bhavaya. When this process is about to occur, the next life continuum vibrates. First for 2 moments. Right? Remember? Next comes the mind or apprehension. And then follows a series of 7 apperceptives, right? The javanas. Accompanied by strong desire to live the new life. Thereafter, life continua begin to flow again. This is talking specifically about the rebirth process, the rebirth viti, right? Earlier, the life force which supported the viti was the previous force. What we died with, pratisandha chitta karmaya, is what sustained our life force. Now, when the life has arisen, we have to take that life as object. Or else, how is Jivita Indriya going to connect itself to this Vartamana Bhavaya? In order to assume the normal continuation of life. Do you understand? If we are going to assume the normal continuation, remember why a Arahant fully dies off is because there is no force within the Jivita Indriya to keep continuing. Alimanati hinda. Right? So then the new craving arises here, isn't it? Which is denoted by shadow here. The present moment, life has to be taken as object now, the same way that we know the Panchupadanaskandha, the 5 aggregates operate, has to be taken as me, myself, and I to ensure now the continuation. Right? Here, thereafter, the life continua begin to flow again. In fact, this being does not know anything of his present new life. He lives reflecting what he had experienced in the previous existence. The basis of the mind, however, is too weak, so that the object also cannot be clearly reflected. The object being thus indistinct, there generally arises only such classes of consciousness as conjoined with perplexity. Again, the object being thus indistinct, there generally arise only such classes of consciousness as are conjoined with perplexity. Right? There is no true clarity there. After 2 months or so from the time of impregnation, during the period the individual is gradually developing, the controlling powers of the eyes, ears, etc. complete their full development. But there being no light and so on in the womb of the mother, the 4 classes of cognition, visual, auditory, and so on do not arise. Only tactile cognition and the mind cognition arise. The child suffers much pain and distress at every change in the mother's bodily posture. Sorry, excuse me. Bodily posture. And much more so while he is being born. Even after he has come into the outer world, he has to lie very feebly on his back till the delicate body becomes strong enough, literally reaches a state of maturity to bear itself. During this period, he cannot cognize present objects, but his mind generally turns towards the objects of his previous existence. If he comes from a hell world, he generally presents an unpleasant face, for he still feels what he has experienced in the hell world. If he comes from the abode of Devas, his pleasant face not only shines with smiles, but it is joyous, but its joyous expression of laugh, as it were. He shows his happiness at some thought of the object of the Deva world. Furthermore, the members of his body steadily become strong and his sense impressions clear. So soon he will be able to play joyfully in his own dear little ways. A happy life is thus begun for him, and he begins to take an interest in his new life. He takes to and imitates his mother's speech. He prattles with her. Thus his senses almost entirely turn to the present world, and all his reflections of the previous life fade away. That is to say, he forgets his previous existence. Do all beings forget their previous existence only at this period of life? No, not all beings. Some who are very much oppressed with the pain of conception forget their previous existences during the period of pregnancy. Some at the time of birth, some at the aforesaid period, some during the period of youth, and some in old age. Some extraordinary men do not forget for the whole of their lifetime. And even there are some who are able to reflect 2 or 3 previous existences. They are called Jatisara Saptas, who's gifted with the memory of their previous existences. Now, to return to our subject, through the 6 sense door processes of thought begin to work, though the 6 door processes of thought begin to work after the child has been born, yet the 6 door processes work themselves out in a full action only when the child is able to take up present objects. Very interesting point, right? Thus, in every process of thought, every preceding consciousness that has just ceased is related to every succeeding consciousness that has immediately arisen by way of continuity. And this relation of continuity prevails throughout the whole span of recurring existences of an individual, right from the untraceable beginning with unbroken continuity, but only after he has attained the path of arahantship and has attained the Kanda Parinibbana. Up until that point, it continues on, right? Does this continuum break, or more strictly speaking, ceases forever? Why is Anantara so called, and why is Paccaya Anantara so called? Because it causes such states of phenomena. Sorry. Missing the pause. Why is Anantara so called, and why Paccaya? Anantara is so called because it causes such states of phenomena as are similar to its own to succeed in the immediately following instant. Pachaya is so called because it renders help in the phase similar to its own. The word similar is meant to express similarity in respect of having the faculty of being conscious of an object. Being conscious of an object. And saramana means a phenomena which does not occur without the presence of an object. So it has been rendered as similar in respect of having the faculty and so forth, right? Of having the faculty and so forth. Also, the phase Dhammantarassa upadanattena. Dhammantarassa upadanattena expresses the following meaning. Through the preceding thought, though the preceding thought ceases, the conscious faculty of it does not become extinct until it has caused the succeeding thought to arise. Until it has caused the succeeding thought to arise. We can look at it through the scope of Jivita Indriya there. Right? Here, it should be borne in mind that the sense of Pachaya Dhammas of this relation resembles a series of preceding mothers, and a series of Pachaya Dhammas resembles a series of succeeding daughters. This being so, the last dying thought of an Arahant should also cause the arising of a rebirth consciousness. No, it does not, but it does not do so. For at the close of the evolution of existence, all activities of volitions and defilements, kamma kilesa, have entirely ceased. And the last dying thought has reached the final, ultimate quiescence. Right? Right. Wasn't that a beautiful sort of sense of the meaning there? Right? Now, let's move on to the next one. Can we move on to the next one? Is that clear, everyone? Right? So to really summarize upon, right? To really summarize upon, proximity decisive anantara upanissaya, right? Let's go to the chart and come back again, right? Here. Anantara upanissaya, proximity same as 4, which we have gone over, is where the previous states that arose before it passes away conditions the arising of the succeeding 89 chittas and 52 chetasikas. It is highly dependent, the succeeding 89 chittas and the 52 chetasikas sorry, the succeeding 89 chittas and 52 chetasikas are highly dependent upon upanissaya of the one energies that have been left by the preceding 89 chittas and 52 chetasikas. Right? Upon its demise, the succeeding 89, 52 chetasikas comes to maturation and rising. Is that clear? Right? So through what Lady Sayadaw had explained, we can understand the predominance of shift which happens during this process, which has to take the previous object. It shifts from the previous object that it took, the previous object which what took, the preceding 89 chittas and 52 chaitasikas took, to now it must shift to the succeeding or the present 89 object that the 89 chittas and the 52 chaitasikas take. Yeah, which we can put into our chitta viti learning, right? We can put very easily into our chitta viti learning. What is that? What we learned in the chitta viti was that an impulsion occurs, or I'm sorry, an impingement occurs. The impingement, based upon that impingement, upon maturation of that impingement, the bhavanga chalana process happens, right? Atita bhavanga chalana, bhavanga upacheda, which is created by, if we are standing from the moment of present, stand at the moment of present and know that with every moment you have to change now. You have to go through the 17. So if we are looking at from the moment of present, the object that arose in the past is what now matures and creates the Atita Bhavanga. Moving on to Bhavanga Chalana and then Upacheda. And then arises with whatever Dwaraviti where the impingement occurs. In every position, it is because of the Bhavanga Upacheda that this new process was able to start. But the Bhavanga Upacheda, if it dies completely without giving anything to the next moment, what can happen? Do you get what I mean? What Dhamma can arise next if the Bhavanga Upacheda, at the moment of Bhavanga Upacheda, if everything is cut out? But it doesn't. The residue of energy conditions the arising of the next. If this Upanisaya Pache was not taught out, we would not understand how that happens, and moreover, sort of insinuate upon an existence of self in a way. Because without that continuity, the process of continuity, how is it that the mind knows exactly what theme of mind should arise next or arise in the moment? How did that past energy which arose 3 mind moments ago now come to condition the moment, whether it's a Chakkudwaraviti, a Sotadwaraviti, whatever it is, a Manodwaraviti, whatever it is, how does that condition come? It comes through that residue of energy, the spirit of which is carried on as an energy within the continuum. Do you understand? Is that clear? That was what Lady Sayadaw was saying. To go on, Lady Sayadaw taking the example of the past births, where the child who was taking past objects at first, pondering upon past object and energy, now comes to grapple the present world and hold on to the present world. What does that speak about? The object conditions, the past object or the past karmic residue conditions the arising of present moment conscious awareness, right? But in the present moment, if the mind does not grapple onto the object of, let's say, Chakku Pasada, at the moment of Chakku, at a moment where the Chakku Dwara Viti is playing itself out, then how would we be able to have clarity of what we see? Do you understand? Right? If the mind does not, now conditioned by that residue, the impingement has occurred. Because of that impingement, the Panchadwara Bhajana knows exactly which faculty to focus on. The Pancha, in that way, when the Chakkudwara Viti is taken in, or that object is taken in, we would be able to now focus upon that object taken in by the Chakkudwara Viti because of the kammic residue. The present, all the residue condition that state, that present moment, the attachment should be to that object which has arisen in that respective faculty. Is that clear? Right? But at the next moment, we surpass that as well. But that surpassing is made possible because of the knowledge of data that we have, or the energy that we have from the impingement of the Chakku Pasada. Do you understand now? Is it clear what Upanishad Pacha is? Right? Yeah? Can we move on? Any questions? Yes, Mala?
Bhante, Venerable Ananda Maitreya compares this to like a passing of a baton, how the previous chitta passes the energy to the new chitta, and so on. It goes on and on for many, many lifetimes. So it's very interesting what Lady Sadi has said.
And yes, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. Thank you for that, Mala. And we'll come to that after this next one.
Okay.
Right? Where is the next one? Okay.
Bhante,
Yes.
there's something, there's a difference between proximity given in the line 4 and this proximity we are talking about. Because this proximity, because it's a Upanishad, it has got more sort of more strength into it.
Yes.
Right? Because in the previous one, it's just normal one. Upanishad is some extra energy that governs the flow of chittas, actually.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you, Dhamma.
Yeah.
So here, that is why we saw the word dependence.
Yeah.
Right? Where the conditioned state, everyone, the conditioned state, it is not, do not think that it is in a way, like for example, Mala's example, the baton, right? Without the baton, remember that the next player cannot move forward without the baton. Right? That prominence is given in proximity support condition. Right? Now, of course, we can use the baton example for proximity Anantara Pacha as well. But remember that there is far more dependence. The other one, in the normal proximity, we are simply talking about the passing of the energy. In this situation, we talk about how the failing of the previous is a condition to the maturation of the present. Right? The maturation of the present. That is what it is dependent upon that feeling. While the energy is passed on to the next, if this remains, this will not mature. This cannot fully mature if this remains. This will only mature when this ceases to exist. In a way, like a stepping stone, using it as a stepping stone to the next. If that height is not present, we might not be able to reach the higher. Right? So remember that predominance is present in this condition. Is it clear? Right? So although it just simply says same as 4, which is proximity here, right? We must add that sort of pinch of more data or weight onto this, right? There is these completely depend on the energy that is brought in by these, the preceding, and its demise for them to fully mature. Right? Do you understand? Is that clear? Thank you, Dhamma, for bringing that up. Yeah. Now, natural. Right? Now, natural is very interesting. Also, like everything else. All right. Now, let us go. Where is it? 315. Here, natural. Natural decisive support. Pakatupanisaya Upanisaya is a wide relation that includes as the conditioning states and is a wide relation that includes all the conditioning states, all past mental or material phenomena that become strongly efficacious from the arising at a subsequent time of the conditioned state, which are subsequent chittas and chetasikas. Right? Again, is a wide relation that includes as the conditioning state all the past mental or material phenomena that become strongly efficacious for the arising. Right? For example, prior lust may be a natural decisive support condition for the volitions of killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, etc. Prior faith for the volition of giving alms, undertaking precepts and practicing meditation, the gaining of health and happiness and energy, the offset of sickness for sorrow and torpor, etc. Right? This speaks about, now when we talk about Pakatupanishraya, anyways, now this speaks about a situation where, now if we simply ask ourselves, right, why are we, or how are we, why are we Buddhists? Right? If we simply ask ourselves, why are we Buddhist, or why do we follow this Dhamma, or why do we hail this Dhamma so much? Right? Yes, of course. Now we can say, of course, because of the Dhamma. Right? But who taught the Dhamma? The Buddha did 2,600 years ago. So the Buddha, according to Patthana, becomes the Pakatupanishraya for us being Buddhist. Do you understand? Right? Now, when we go to a retreat, right? When we go to a retreat, there's something called an external natural support condition. What are external support conditions? Everything which is around us, right? Everything which is around us, the mountains, the forests, the lakes, the waters, the sounds, the nature, the bliss of nature, all of that, right? So when we go to a retreat, it is obviously far more peaceful and blissful than we try to sort of meditate at home, maybe, right? Of course, some people are so sort of fortunate enough to have sort of houses which are like retreat centers, some people have beautiful gardens, right, where they can just go and sort of sit and enjoy and just even look out the windows and enjoy, right? Some people have that, are fortunate enough to have all of that, or so all of that becomes an external natural support condition. Do you understand? Right now, Lady Seado, of course, has a beautiful explanation. Let us go to Lady Seado's and read it. Sorry for being so biased. Here, where is the support condition? Here. Now, right, okay, we'll read it from here. So, Upanishad Pache. The relation of suffering condition is of three kinds. Objective suffering, sorry, not suffering condition, sufficing condition, is of three kinds. Objective sufficing condition, continuous sufficing condition, and natural sufficing condition. Of these three, the first is the same as objective dominance, the second as continuity. What is natural sufficing condition? All past, present, and future, internal, all, remember this, all past, present, and future, internal and external, classes of consciousness together with their concomitants, all material qualities, nibbana, and concepts are natural sufficing conditions. Severally related, as the case may be, to all the present classes of consciousness and their concomitants, right? Here, the Buddha who passed away and has entered Nibbana, his Dhamma, the fraternity of his sanctified disciples and the successions of the recognized fraternity are causally related to us, right? Of later generation by way of natural sufficing condition for the cultivation of good. In the same way, our forefathers, in their respective capacities as parents, teachers, wise monks, Brahmins, eminent philosophers, and powerful and august kings, are also causally related to the succeeding generations by way of natural sufficing condition, either for the cultivation of good or for evil, or of evil, or the experience of pleasure or of pain, for which reason they established or propounded various laws and sayings, moral and immoral, and also worldly institutions, both for the welfare and otherwise of the succeeding generations. The future generations also follow their path and adopt their customs by doing acts of charity, by observing the precepts and so forth, by by practicing the moral and social laws of the world, by adhering to various religious beliefs, by taking up various kinds of occupations, by studying various branches of arts and science, by governing hamlets, villages, and towns, by being agriculturists in the field or on the farm, by digging lakes, ponds, and wells, by building houses, by making carriages and carts, by building boats, steamers, and ships, and by seeking for and accumulating wealth, such as silver, gold, precious stones, pearls, and so forth, and so on. Thus, the world has developed unceasingly. The future Buddha Maitreya, his Dhamma and his fraternity are natural sufficing conditions, being causally related to the present generation. For the acquirement of virtues and the gaining of merit, supremacy, wealth, power, prosperity, which are to be gained in the future, and are also natural sufficing conditions related to the present generation for putting forth of efforts of all sorts. The acquirement of the happy existence and wealth and the attainment of path, fruition, and nibbana, which are to be enjoyed in the future, are also natural sufficing conditions related to the present generation of men for the development of such forms of merit as charity and virtue and so on. Is it clear, everyone? Makes a lot of sense, isn't it? Right? With the hope of reaping crops in winter, men till the soil and sow the seed in the rainy season, or do various kinds of work which incur labor and intellect, with the hope of getting money upon their completion of the work. Now, the crops to be reaped and the money to be got are future natural sufficing conditions. Is that clear? Past natural sufficing conditions, present natural sufficing conditions, and future natural sufficing conditions related to the acquisition of crops and money. In the same manner, most people in the present life do many good deeds, realizing that they will reap the fruits of their deeds in some life hereafter. In this case, the fruits which will be reaped in future are future natural sufficing conditions related to the deeds done in the present life. Deeds done before are also past natural sufficing conditions related to the fruits which are to be reaped in the future. Thus, we see that the future natural sufficing condition is as large and wide as the past. The living Buddha and his Dhamma and so on are present natural sufficing conditions, being related to the present living men, devas, and brahmas, and so on. So are the living parents, the sons and daughters, and so on. The present natural sufficing condition is thus obvious and easy to understand. Again, can I repeat? The living Buddha, his Dhamma, and so on are present natural sufficing conditions being related to the present living men, devas, and brahmas. Living men, devas, and brahmas. And so are living parents to the living sons and daughters, and so on. The present natural sufficing condition is thus obvious and easy to understand. Sorry. Internal natural sufficing conditions are those that exist in an animate person. Internal natural sufficing conditions are those that exist in an animate person, such as Buddha and so forth. External natural sufficing conditions are conditions such as lands, mountains, rivers, oceans, and so on, which serve as resting places for existence of life, sentient beings, us. Or such as forests, wood, trees, grasses, grains, beans, and so forth. Or such as the moon and the sun, the planets, the stars, and so on. Or such as the rain, fire, wind, cold, heat, and so forth, which are useful and advantageous to life in one way or other. All these are more powerful sufficing conditions. All these are more powerful sufficing conditions, either for the accomplishment of good or for the spreading of evil, either for the enjoyment of pleasures or for the suffering of pains. Those with earnest desire to enter Nibbana in the present life work out the factors of enlightenment. Those with an ardent hope to enter Nibbana in the life to come, when the Buddhas appear, fulfill perfections. Here, Nibbana is the more powerful sufficing condition for the cultivation of these tasks, for the cultivation of these tasks. Just remember that for a moment, yeah? A large variety of concepts or names and notions commonly employed of, okay, here, what they mean by this part here, right, with regards to Nibbana. Now, as we conditioned, as the conditioned beings that we are, Nibbana and what we know of Nibbana, for example, what you might know as students of the Dhamma, how you might relate to Nibbana and the technicalities and the differentiations of the concepts and definitions of Nibbana to you would definitely be different and unique compared in comparison to a person who just knows Nibbana as a word the Buddhists use, of course. Similarly, in a similar manner, the depth the word Nibbana has to us is different to the depth the word Nibbana might have to a person who has not learned Dhamma. Similarly, the changes that occur prompted by the word Nibbana is different to a person who doesn't know what Nibbana is. Do you understand? Right? Now, when we chant Namo Tassa, isn't there a gradual sort of calmness that arises as we do chant it? If we do chant it and we know the meaning, or it is a sort of sense of discipline, that is what that power is representing here in the sufficing condition, right? It is that power that is represented there. Even with the lakes, the mountains, the waters, the foods, the forests, and all of that, those too are powerful sufficing conditions, right? It can be used for either good or bad, dependent upon the person. However, how are they prominent or powerful? It is because of the nature by which they exist. Do you understand? Now, for example, if we take the origination of cities, right? A good example would be, let's take Australia, right? The origination of cities, if you look at the demographics, how the cities are located in Australia, of course, you find that most of the cities are towards the outer banks of Australia, isn't it? Right? You have very little going on in the Midlands. Now you see how the waters have become a very powerful sufficing condition to life, to present life, right? That is how nature in that way can become a powerful sufficing condition, right? Let's move on. A large variety of concepts or names and notions commonly employed or found in the Tripitaka of the Buddha, and also sufficing conditions for the understanding of many things, in fact, are also sufficing condition for the understanding of many things. In fact, all conditioned things here comes to be only when there are present causes or conditions for the same and not otherwise. And they stand only if they are present causes for their standing. Otherwise, they do not. Right? Otherwise, they do not. Again, in fact, all conditioned things here come to be only when the present causes and conditions for the same and not otherwise. And they stand only if there are present causes for their standing. Otherwise, they do not. Therefore, causes or conditions are needed for their arising as well as for their maintenance. However, Nibbana and concepts are things unconditioned, without birth and genesis, everlasting and eternal. Therefore, no causes are needed for their arising and maintenance. Right? This is not talking about the vulgar idea of continuation within samsara. This is talking about the idea of when there is no arising, there is no passing away. If a dharma arises, it has to pass away. If there is no arising, there is no passing away. Right? The moral is causally related to that which is moral by way of sufficing condition. The moral is causally related to that which is moral by way of sufficing condition. A clear exposition of this is given in the Patthana, where it is said, through faith, one gives charity, observes the precepts, and so on. Similarly, that moral is causally related to the immoral and unspecified. Akusala, Dhamma, Kusala, Kusala, Dhamma, Kusala, Akusala, Dhamma. And unspecified. Kusala, Abhyakata, Dhamma, unspecified. Right? I can see Dhamsri laughing, smiling. Or unmoral to unmoral. Akusala, Akusala, Dhamma. By way of sufficing condition is made clear by these expositions. Through lust, one commits murder, theft, and so on. Through suitable climate and food, one enjoys physical health and so forth. The moral is also causally related to that which is immoral by way of powerful sufficing condition. This is to be understood from the following exposition. One may give to charity and thereupon exalt oneself and revile others. Right? Exalt oneself and revile others. Right? So internal joke could be kusala dhamma, akusala dhamma. Only we will know. In the same way, in the same manner, having observed precepts, having attained concentration of mind, and having acquired learning, one may exalt oneself and belittle others. Right? Kusala Dhamma, Kusala Dhamma. Right? The moral is also causally related to that which is unmoral. Is unmoral a word? It's immoral, right?
Immoral is a correct word, Bhante.
Yeah, okay.
Not immoral. Yeah.
By way of more powerful sufficing condition. All good deeds done in the four planes. These four planes are spheres of Kama, Rupa, Arupa, and Lokottara, right? And all actions connected to doing good are related by way of more powerful sufficing condition to immorals of the resultant kind, producible at a remote period. Those who practice for the perfection of charity suffer much physical and mental pain. Similarly, those who practice for such other perfections, paramitas, as of morality, abnegation, wisdom, perseverance, patience, sincerity, resolution, love, and resignation, suffer the same. It is likewise with those who practice the course of jhana and magga. Immorals are also causally related by way of more powerful sufficing condition to morals. For instance, of some on this earth, having done wrong, repent their deeds and better themselves to shun all evil deeds by cultivating such moral acts as giving charity, observing precepts, practicing jhanas and maggas. Thus, the evil deeds they have done are related by way of stronger sufficing condition to moral acts as they cultivate the latter. Yeah. Immorals are also causally related by way of more powerful condition to immorals. For instance, many people in this world, having been guilty of evil deeds, are destined to fall into one of the four planes of misery and undergo the pains of suffering which prevail there. Even in the present life, though, some, through their own misdeeds or misdeeds of others, have to bear a great deal of distress, right? Like Mahinda Rajapaksa's face today, he looked very stressed out. I felt sorry for him, actually, right? Some, however, enjoy a large variety of pleasures with the money they earn by their misconduct. Some, however, enjoy a large variety of pleasures with the money they earn by their misconduct. There are also many who suffer much on account of lust, hate, error, conceit, and so forth. Immorals are also causally related by way of more powerful sufficing condition to the morals. Having become possessed of great wealth, one gives charity, practices for the perfection of good morals, fosters wisdom, practices the religious exercises in a suitable place, such as a monastery, a hollow place, a cave, a tree, a forest, a hill, or a village, where the climate is agreeable and the food is available. Immorals are also causally related by way of more powerful sufficing conditions to immorals. Being equipped with eyes, many evils are born of sight within oneself. A similar explanation applies to our equipment with ears, etc. So also as regards hands, legs, swords, arms, etc., it is thus that sufficing condition is of three kinds. Sufficing condition by way of sutanta may also be mentioned here. It is found in many such passages in the Pitakas as through intercourse with virtuous friends, through association with sinful companions, by living in the village, by dwelling in the forest, and so forth. In short, the 5 cosmic orders, Pancha Niyama Dhamma, are stronger sufficing conditions relating to the 3 worlds, the animate world, the inanimate world, and the world of space, to go on unceasingly through the eons of time. This has been expounded at length by us in the Niyama Deepani, by us meaning Lady Sayadaw. Shall we read this part also, since it's so interesting, right? Why is Arammana Upanishad so called? It is so called because the dominant object acts as a main basis for subject. The dominant object acts as the main objects for the subjects. Why is Arammana Upanishad Anantarupanishad called? Anantarupanishad called. It is so called because the preceding consciousness acts as the main basis for the arising of its intermediate succeeding consciousness. The preceding consciousness is just like the mother and the succeeding one, the son. Here, just as a mother gives birth to the son who owes his existence to her in particular, so also the preceding consciousness gives birth to the succeeding one which owes its existence to the particular, to its predecessor. You know what the word is. Why is Pakatopanishad so called? It is so called because it is naturally known to the wise as a distinct sufficing condition. Here, something further requires to be said. The influence of a sufficing condition is continuity. The influence of a sufficing condition is continuity. Pervades only its immediate successor, but that of a natural sufficing condition can pervade many remote ones. Therefore, what in this present life has been seen, heard, smelled, tasted, touched, and experienced in days, months, years, long gone by, takes form again at the mind door, even after a lapse of 100 years, if a sufficient cause is available. And so, people remember their past and can utter such expressions as, I saw it before, I heard it before, and so on. These beings whose birth is apparitional also remember their former existences. Likewise, some among men who are gifted with the memory of their former existences can do so. If one out of 100,000 objects experienced before be met with afterwards, many or it may be all of them reappear in a process of thought. This is something that is repeated again and again in the Vishuddhimagga as well, with regards to the kasinas and the samatha bhavanas that we have gone through. Yeah, end of Upanishad relation. Yeah. Now, that was interesting. That was an interesting read, wasn't it? Yeah.
Very interesting, yes.
Yes. Let us praise Lady Sayadaw wherever he is.
Bhante, we only got one more chapter to do on Bhikkhu Bodhi, right?
Yes.
After this, and this Lady Sayadaw's book is very interesting. Can we do that after we finish? It's really nice and interesting and light reading. And
Well,
I hope he hasn't got a Patthana chapter on it.
So we read that was the Patthana chapter.
But it's light reading, sort of,
Yeah.
not like
Yeah.
Bhikkhu Bodhi.
Yeah, very nicely, really.
Yeah.
How did you read? Mm.
Well, the thing is, I mean, that book is, I think it's in a different essence, it's in a different spirit. Yeah. And
What do you mean different script? I mean,
well, I mean, it is written as, this book is a compilation of, for learning in theoretical study of sorts. that book it's done in a different spirit for reading. You know, it is his exposition which was written, how he understands and comprehends those elements. It was about him. This book is about us.
That's the
Right?
difference. But this is really interesting, Bhante, this book. They
Yeah.
decided this book.
I think-
And Bhante, when you read it, for me, it opens up all visions. You don't have to be sitting and studying it, Bhante. And that also changes your mind.
Hari දැන් අපි බික්කු බෝධියට ගාන්න නැතුව ඉමුකෝ. This is
That's
what-
why, that's why, Bhante, I said it also opens the mind. I didn't say
No.
that was instead of this, right? For those who want to sit and study everything, this is wonderful. But for somebody else who might want to enjoy the book and see things just as you when you read it, understand, that might be another additional thing to do, Bhante.
No, of course, it's a very good addition, isn't it? All right, let us just come back to this, to this so that we finish today's lesson. All right. So natural, strong past. Why it mentions strong past is as mentioned by Lady Sayadaw in what we read. When that strong past, it has to be a strong past if it is to hold on and come into the present. 89 chittas, 52 chaitikas, 28 matter, and some concept, prajñapti, becomes the conditioning states for the arising of latter 89 chittas and 52 chaitasikas. 89 chittas and 52 chaitasikas. So everything, past, present, future, external, internal, which we covered, all befalls or is included within 89 chittas, 52 chaitasikas, 28 matter, and prajñapti. It conditions the arising of 89 chittas and 52 chaitasikas. Okay. Is that clear? Right. And we do understand when we say, I hope I do not have to explain in saying 89 chittas and 52 chaitasikas having the support of whatever condition which is of that time, this support, the strong past, would arise in this birth, the next birth, or all the way up until we attain Nibbana, maybe in long years to come, regardless. Not that we are saying that we want to be in samsara for such long, but if we do, when the condition is present, it can arise. Yeah. All right. Okay. So it's 8:30.
Bhante, something I want to mention, it is not very important, but something interesting. Lady Sayadaw has said, the baby in the womb, with the cognition, the auditory is not there, but there is proof that the babies in the womb can hear.
Okay. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
true, Bhante, because music and things, and when people play, and some people who want their children to be very musical,
Hmm.
they play a lot of music, and when the babies are born, they show that they have learned it because they can produce that very easily, other
Okay.
than the genetic problem. I mean, genetically you can also do, but people who are not born to parents who are very musical minded, if you play a lot of music and things like that, they become very musical then.
Bhante, it's possible that actually the baby can hear through not through the auditory elements, through the skin or the kaya vinyana. So the sound captured through the kaya vinyana, because of course the child has got the feelings, body feel, tactile feelings, and so probably it's so advanced that the child can actually listen to the music playing outside.
I think Bhante Dhamma, what he says is because the vibrations of energy can pass through the skin, through the amniotic fluid, and can reach the child, and the child can respond. So I can see what Dhamma is saying. That's a very, I mean, now that's what people are saying. You don't need to have nerves and hearings and cochlears and things like that. The vibrations of energy can pass through like that, through the skin and the mother's abdomen and through the amniotic sac and the amniotic fluid, and reach the baby. And if he can respond to the sensations of feelings as a vibrational energy. We thought of potabba and things like that. You know what I'm trying to, it's all vibrational energy, not the tactile energy. Anyway, just a thought.
All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, then. So I will see you all tomorrow for our morning meditation. So take care and have a good rest of the evening.
Thank you, Bhante. It's a very interesting class. Thank you.
And Bhante, you must rest because you are talking to us and provoking a cough, Bhante. So please.
Yeah. Yes, I think so.
No,
That's right.
I am bored.
Warm water.
I am bored as hell, so I want the class. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Everyone's night.
Everyone,
Everyone,